time to pick the best match from every single WWE PLE of this year, 2024. And to do so, to help me here, we got none other than Sean Ross Sapp.
It's me. I'm Sean Ross Sapp. I'm here. I'm ready to pick the best matches. There were some of them I had to look back at and be like, okay, what were the best matches? And really, almost all of them were pretty clear cut for me.
I struggled with the earlier ones from early in the year. Obviously, on like the big ones from the big pay-per-views like Royal Rumble and stuff like that. But some of the other smaller shows, Sean, I looked at the card and I was thinking, what the happened on this show?
Yeah.
And this reminded me every single year at the end of the year, Sean, I always tell myself, why the hell didn't I write this down? Why didn't I write down my favorite and least favorite matches so that it helps me out at the end of the year?
Yeah, I will definitely do better at keeping notes throughout the year. So I'm not in a situation where I'm looking back at every show going, man, what did I even like on that? Because we have so many events now that it's like on to the next one, on to the next one.
Everything's a blur, but we're going to go ahead and do our best here today. And Sean and I are going to pick our favorite, and let's see how different or how similar we are. So, we're going to go ahead and get right into it in chronological order. So, here we go. Kicking things off with the Royal Rumble. Ready, Sean? One, two,
Yes.
three. Let's do this.
Yep.
We're twins. I figured, right? What was your reasoning for that?
A lot of great surprises, a very satisfying finish. I felt like the match was executed better than the men's, which isn't always hard for the women because, for biological reasons, I mean, they're smaller human beings, and the men, it is more difficult to get them over the top rope as a result. Sometimes you got to use some trickery and some things like that. But Liv coming back, Jordan Grace showing up, Jade Cargill's debut, Naomi returning. I thought those were all very important moments.
Yeah, they certainly were. That was part of the reason why I also chose the women's rumble was because it was just exciting. And when I really thought back to big top highlights, that was the one where I kept thinking like, boom, okay, Jordan Grace. Oh, we also had Naomi. Oh my God, how long Bailey lasted, Tiffany Stratton, all of those people. Instantly, I had all of these flashbacks to the match. And then for the men's, I kind of remembered the beginning and the end and almost hardly nothing in between. So I was like, yeah, I remember loving the women's Royal Rumble a whole lot more. But let's go ahead and continue it on to the Elimination Chamber. Who is your pick, Sean? Ah,
Judgment
okay.
Day, New Catch Republic.
Mine was the women's chamber. So why was yours the tag team match?
Well, unfortunately, we've seen an injury to Tyler Bate, and that has derailed things. But they were brought in, I want to say, the month before the Elimination Chamber, and I felt like this was a very important spot for them to be in because, let's be real, a lot of times tag teams get thrown to the wayside. This was, first off, a phenomenal match, and also very important in establishing them as credible threats against a team like Judgment Day that had dominated WWE's airwaves for so long.
Yeah, so I went with the women's chamber because Tiffany Stratton. Again, I kind of went with what I remembered the most. And what I remember was Tiffany Stratton being hella freaking over and how excited everybody was about her future immediately after this match. And even thinking like it was so crazy that she wasn't even supposed to be a babyface during this time, but yet she was getting these really loud cheers. And so when I think back to the Elimination Chamber, it's one of the biggest moments that I remember is the fact that the crowd said, hey, Tiffany Stratton, we like her. Let's make her a star. So I
Yeah.
went with the women's chamber primarily for that reason.
And the reactions were great there. We had Anna on the scene doing interviews, and like even Tiffany was blown away at the reactions.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. All right. So next up, we got WrestleMania. Did you do one for both or did you do one for each night?
I put night one and night two on one sheet of paper.
All right. Well, then I'll show mine at the exact same time then. Here we go. Night one and night two of WrestleMania. Bam. Who do you got? Ah, we're kind of similar, but we differ on night one. So you went with Sammy and Gunther for night one. Night two, Cody and Roman, just like me. And then night one, I went with Rhea and Becky. So why did you go with Sammy and Gunther for night one?
Hard for me to vote against something that has that type of finish. The brain buster finish on the top rope. I mean, I loved that era of independent wrestling, and El Generico was a big part of that. So that was very cool. And also, a historic title reign ended, and Sami Zayn continues to be booked very, very well. Cody Roman, like, I mean, that was exactly what I wanted it to be. A lot of people were like, oh, we need a good, clean match. I'm like, no, we need the Avengers. We need all this crazy stuff to happen. It's a very rare situation where I was looking forward to something being completely overbooked and they didn't disappoint.
I think for me, it was really just the moment. And I know you said, like, yeah, they kind of did a whole lot with everything that they incorporated into this match. But the whole time, I just remember everybody being like, oh shit, oh shit. And like, really remember the feeling that I had while watching the entire match. And even just afterwards coming out of it, going, oh my God, Cody and Roman was so cool. And so glad to see Cody get his moments. But for night one, I went with Rhea and Becky primarily because it was a match that I was really looking forward to. And I recall Becky, saying how she was actually sick during that match. I think she had like what, like a
She
fever or
was.
something.
She was
And I
very sick.
Right, and I thought to myself, like, even with that and having to go out there in that freaking cold ass temperature, the fact that they still went out there and did the match they did, I ended up appreciating it even more after hearing that Becky Lynch was so sick during that match, but that they were still able to pull this off. And it was such a pivotal moment because Becky, I kind of felt, was sort of handing the baton over to Rhea Ripley and saying, Tag, you're it, to be like the face of the WWE women's division. And Rhea, I think, even though she was injured for a bit, but she came back and she really has continued to grow as a freaking megastar. So I just saw a lot of symbolism in this match for what it meant from Becky to Rhea. And I just really liked what they did here.
Yep. Hard for me to disagree with that.
All right, so let's keep it going. We got Backlash France. All right. Which one did you pick for this one? Ready? Hey, me too. Cody versus AJ.
Man, the more I looked back on this year, I'm like, okay, I see a lot of people that are saying Cody Rhodes' reign was underwhelming and all that stuff. Sorry about my camera blurring out. I'll fix that. But um Cody had some bangers
Might need one
this
more
year.
wipe, Sean.
Mm, That's what that's what you I know when you say that, but anyway, like Cody was on a hot streak this year with like insane quality matches. And I know that some of the people that they put him against were like, okay. But then I look back and I don't think that title reign was bad at all. Like he was doing incredible stuff in the ring.
Yeah, I know everybody wasn't really like going like, "Oh yeah, we know it's going to be a good match, but the feud's not necessarily that
Yeah.
hot." And then that was really like the big thing that you kept hearing people echo that same sentiment throughout the entire time. But Cody and AJ really did freaking kill it. And I just love the fact that AJ got to wrestle Dusty and then there he was wrestling Cody and they just went out there
Yes.
and they had an honest to God wrestling match and that was freaking cool. And I know that even if people didn't think the feud was hot, sometimes you just gotta have great freaking matches. And that's exactly what I think they did here. And they did try to give this feud a little extra heat, a little extra sizzle. And so it was, pretty decent. I enjoyed what they did here.
Sometimes you got to remind people that your world champion is the best wrestler in the world. Like that's why they are champion.
Exactly. All right. So next up, we got King and Queen of the Ring. Who did you go with? Oh, we're different here. Why'd you go
I
with King and
would like
Logan?
that was this is one of the toughest ones. This is by far one of the toughest ones. Gunther and Orton was up there. Was that the one that had the wonky finish?
Yes, it was.
That's what decided it for me because it was not supposed to happen like that. And I was like, man, come on. And that did bum me out a little bit. Now, eventually they made it into something, which I'm glad they did, but that's what separated it for me. And also, Logan Paul still having the US title while this happened almost took it away a little bit for me because it eliminated any real possibility of him winning the world championship.
I hated the build up to Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul because
Yeah,
remember there was like a little bit of confusion about whether or not the United States Championship was even on the
exactly.
line. And I hated that. I really hated that. And to me, like, even though the match wasn't bad, I just kind of felt like, yeah, you're right. It eliminated any possibility of you thinking the title was going to change, especially the fact that he didn't put up his United States championship. I thought that was kind of lame. But also, it felt like it was obvious that they didn't have any other challengers for Cody Rhodes that had a big enough name. So they had to go with Logan Paul. And so that was part of what took that out for me. And Gunther versus Orton, I loved the body of the match. Like it was so good. And I was so bummed out with the way that it ended. But I feel like it didn't even though the ending didn't necessarily work out the way it was planned or whatever, I still really liked what they did before. So that's the reason why I went with it. So I chose to look the other way with the ending.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of flaws with both of these, and still, I thought both matches were very good.
So here we go. Clash at the Castle, Scotland, June 15th. What was your pick for this one? Sammy and Chad Gable. Okay, so I went with Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. And honestly, I went with that just because being in the crowd, it was so cool to see Drew McIntyre get the reactions that he was getting in Scotland. And so it gave it that big match feel, that big moment feel. And given how hard Drew McIntyre pretty much worked throughout the entire year, I was like, this is the best year for this to be happening. It was unfortunate to see Damian Priest get caught up in the ropes, but everything else I thought made it for a really fine match, which is why I went with Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. Why did you go with Sami Zayn and Chad Gable?
But Sammy and Gable, they did everything that they could to make this as important as possible, and I think that that goes a long way for me.
Next up, we got the women's, I mean, sorry, excuse me. We got the Money in the Bank July
You
6th.
gave it away.
I did give it
You gave it
away.
away.
I also went with
Listen,
the women's Money in the Bank.
women's elimination chamber almost won it for me too. It was very close. So we would have been in a situation, Denise, where spoiler, the women's war games did not win it for me. That match was not good. But I was very close to having women's rumble, women's chamber, and women's money in the bank. I feel like in a lot of those style of matches, the women outperformed the men like exponentially this year up until War Games, where the Bloodline definitely did better. But um, Tiffy in the bank, like it was the right winner. It was the right situation. They had a tough one to follow up from last year in London because that was a crazy match that I was there in person for. I thought that they did a great job with that.
I did so too. When I chose the women's Money in the Bank primarily because it's what I remembered the most in. Same thing. I think what it is, like for example, with the Rumble and all of these matches, like the women's all women's matches like this, the big ones, it feels like they try to think of more creative moments because a lot of them don't really have like the big stories going into them. Like a perfect example, the Survivor Series match, which we'll get to later on. Like that one was all about the story, right? And unfortunately, didn't necessarily hit as hard for the women's war games, but they did try to think of a lot of like creative spots. And I feel like because of that, that's usually what makes the women's matches sort of stand out a little bit more. But I feel that the women's Money in the Bank match was definitely the right winner with Tiffany Stratton. But Chelsea Green, the way that she got
Oh yeah.
eliminated, like thrown off the top of the ladder into the freaking table, that was such an awesome moment. And that one moment, I think, led to a string of events that eventually led to the fact that Chelsea Green became the first United States champion. I don't think that without moments like this, her being thrown off of that ladder into the table, without moments like this, I don't think we would be seeing Chelsea as women's United States champion right now. But
Yeah.
yeah, a fun
The
match, which is why I
the
went with it.
longest reigning WWE Women's United States Champion of all time, Chelsea Green.
All right, let's go ahead and get into SummerSlam. This is a jam-packed show. What'd you get?
Oh, it was easy for me.
Oh shit. I almost went with that one, but instead I went with Drew versus Punk. The only reason why I went with it was because I was so excited to see this match from like the very beginning. So I had a lot of anticipation for it. And even though I did not want Seth Rollins to be the special guest referee, I was just still glad that he didn't take away as much from the matchup. So I had to go with Drew Punk for the star power and overall interest in the story. Don't
Mm-mm,
you nod your head at me. This is my picks. That's why
mm-mm,
you got your own picks. All right,
nah,
well, put over
no.
your pick.
What was my pick?
You see, you
Gunther and
already
Damian Priest?
forgot.
Oh, I mean, listen, Damian Priest was pushed up the card and needed to prove that he could deliver, and he did that. I think that people. I thought it became in vogue to almost hate on him on the internet and all that stuff, and I thought that he delivered in the ring whenever he was called upon for stuff like this, and I just thought he killed it. Now, obviously, Gunther is a phenomenal performer, but Damian Priest is a guy I've been looking at since I saw, I think, him face Leo Rush in an ROH Top Prospect tournament almost 10 years ago. and he has only gotten better, and he has only gotten more appropriate near that top. So I thought that was a very good one.
Yeah, fair enough. I also thought that the feud with Gunther made Damian Priest a stronger champion.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we got Bash in Berlin.
They
I'm gonna let
finally
you go
won it for
first.
me.
Oh, finally, I went with Punk and Drew.
Oh, of course you did, you mark.
What I
Look
like.
at you.
Look again. I didn't love that it was the strap one where you have to like touch all the four corners.
That was
I hate
so
that.
lame. Let me tell you, Denise. Every time I have been in a fist fight, like I went up to people and I knocked them out, and then I dragged them to four corners of the room, and then I said, "Now your ass has been kicked."
Yeah, that's the
How I
only
do it.
element of this that I didn't like, but I did love the violence, so I went with Punk and Drew.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
I
so why
I
did
I
Gunther and
don't.
Randy finally win it for you here?
First off, they continued to make sense of the shoulder being up, which I liked that. I love them resolving issues in plot holes and errors that they make in that sense. So I felt like that was the case. And I just thought bell to bell, it was a lot better. And also, we were looking at Randy Orton about a year back from his injury. And I didn't know if he would ever be the same again. And he was still out there having really good matches. I mean, look at how things had unfolded here. Um, Three selections so far on this show have included a Randy Orton in his mid 40s with a back fusion having the best matches on the show. And I think that's very impressive.
All right, so where are we at now? Hell in a sorry, not
Oh,
Hell in a Cell. Yeah, Hell in a Cell.
yeah, it's
This
bad
one's
blood.
easy. Yeah, Bad Blood.
Yeah, one of the best Hell in a Cell matches of all time. This is an easy one. It was perfect. It was a perfect match. They could not have done it better. And it's even more impressive that they did this at the end of their feud after they had two matches that were like, okay, you got the special guest referee. That was okay. The strap match was okay, but weird stipulation. They did the best and made it even better at the end of it, which is what you want to do.
Yeah, this was cool. I took my little brother to the show and I was so happy that he got to see this match because he's not a wrestling fan, but the
Yeah.
entire time he was reacting and going nuts for it. And I just thought, man, that's what it's all about. Like, that's how you know, even if you're not a fan, you can get into it based off of what you're seeing in the actual ring. And I thought that was cool. I loved everything about the match. Of course, the right winner, too, even though I love Drew McIntyre, but I just thought that this was the match. Even though I liked the other two stuff, this one was really the one that I think people are going to think of when you think of that CM Punk Drew McIntyre feud. And once again, Drew McIntyre deserves his flowers. I hope he has a big 2025 year. Alrighty, we're almost there. Crown Jewel, would you pick? Okay, twins. I also went with Cody versus Cody. Cody versus
Cootie,
Gunther.
this continued to highlight to me like, okay, how many matches across this year have the two of us picked Gunther on? I picked him for WrestleMania. You picked him for his against Orton. I picked him for what against Priest, and now we both picked him for Cody. That was, and we're talking about his streak starting at Mania. So, like, what are we in now? November
December.
or no,
You're
no, no,
talking
no.
about right now in this video. Oh yeah,
October. So,
November.
like, from April to October, November, like 5 picks. That really highlights how good Gunther is. And Cody, is at 3 or 4 himself, too. So to see them match up, I mean, listen, I think this could have been, I don't know about a WrestleMania main event, but a WrestleMania match in the future. But I respect that WWE is like, no, let's burn some of these big matches now. That way we are not in a Shield 3-way, 4 horsewomen 4-way Rock and Roman Reigns situation of maybe it never happens. No, do them while you got them, man. I love that, and this match lived up to it.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where at least I didn't care about the Crown Jewel Championship, but I did want to see champion versus champion in this match. And that's literally what I cared about. But it's so funny because a lot of people have sort of been shitting on Gunther lately just because of the booking hasn't been too great, which I do agree with some of that. However, I do feel that we kind of forgot a lot of the great work that Gunther has done throughout
Yeah.
the entire year. And it wasn't until like right now that we're rehashing all of this and going through the matches and picking Gunther that suddenly I'm like, you know what? things weren't so bad for
Insane
Gunther this
year.
year. He actually had a strong year.
Insane year, and, like, as I look at the Fightful award voting, I mean, little spoiler, he ain't leading any of them, and I'm
What?
just like, man, he's one of those guys that I feel like has been the glue of the show, and the glue won't win the MVP. Like, the small forward in the NBA who averages, 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists is not gonna be the MVP, probably isn't gonna make the All-Star team, but that team does not get as far into the playoffs without that player, and I feel like Gunther has been the perfect example of a champion. You look at him and you think champion because of how he carries himself and his performance.
I feel yeah. I think now they just need to recapture that aura that he had as Intercontinental Champion, and then we're back in business with Gunther. So here we go. We got two more, and this is for November 30th. What show was this? Oh yeah, the Survivor Series War Games. Oh, watch out, Sean. We are twins. I
Let's
also went with
go.
Braun, Ludwig, and Sheamus. I went with
Ludwig
it because it
just
was hard hitting, bro.
Ludwig getting better throughout the year. Sheamus just having some of the best runs of his career late in his career. And Braun Breaker stepping up, being thrown into the fire, and delivering almost every time. That's, I mean, to win that on a show with two war games, impressive.
Braun is easily becoming my favorite person to watch wrestle each and every single time. The freakish speed that he has is insane. Sheamus, man, he's just very, very reliable. You know that he's going to go in there, and you know, it's certain guys he's going to have, bangers. He's going to have those classic type of matches that we like. But then Ludwig, on the other hand, he's the one that's sort of, up and coming, and he is also delivering so far with the moments that he's gotten. I do think that Ludwig, down the line, 2025, 2026, he's going to have a brighter future. But yeah, it helps to have matches like this. And I think this was definitely the most impactful match of the night in terms of just like the physical elements of it all. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. So here we go. The last one. This was Saturday night's main event. I'm counting it here as a PLE for the
Okay,
sake
good,
of
because
it.
I did it.
Yeah, I was like, I feel weird not counting it. So let's just count it. I can't imagine we're going to be similar on this one. Ready? Oh, okay. Gunther Priest Balor. I went with Liv and EO.
That's fine. I thought about every match was pretty well on an even plane with quality. They were facing some time constraints. I mean, I'm a little sentimental over Chelsea winning for obvious reasons. Like, I adore her. She's a great person. I liked Cody and KO as well, if you include the aftermath of it. But ultimately, I went with this because bell to bell, I thought it was best. And again, it really highlights to me Priest is underrated, and Gunther has been the glue, the MVP.
So I do think that bell to bell, that was definitely the strongest match. But the reason why I went with Liv and Io was because I thought that aside from the matches that Liv has had with Rhea, this match was probably her best in her reign so far. And just the fact that right now Io has more attention to her name and people are really excited. Like there's people that want to see her win the Rumble, people that want to see her be champion again. And I feel like they just had, again, like you said, there were time constraints on this. We saw that for every single match. I truly think if this match had a couple more minutes, it would probably be considered one of the best women's WWE matches of the year. And they did a lot in however long this match was. And so for that reason, I feel like this one was a little bit overlooked for the night. Like I ran a poll on the YouTube community section, and I was very surprised by how little votes this match got. So I kind of feel like this was the underrated match of the night. So for that reason, I felt like I wanted to give it some attention here today. And that's why I
Yes,
went with Liv and EO.
fair, fair.
All right, but there you go. We did it, Sean. 2024 best WWE PLE matches. Of course, let us know in the comments section which matches you guys picked. Did you agree with my picks? Did you agree with Sean's picks? Did you have totally different picks? Let us know in the comments section below. Sean, where can the people find you?
Fightful, and of course, FightfulSelect.com. That's our subscription service, $5 a month, $54 a year. If you're here on YouTube, we have our YouTube channel. We got lots of interviews, event footage, shorts, review shows, and all that. And also, I'm doing a little Twitter subscription gimmick for $3 a month now, where I tweet things that I probably shouldn't tweet. I actually tweeted out, I spoiled your show, Denise. And I tweeted that I was doing a show with you.
Oh, way to go, Sean. I was going to say, I did not clear that. That was off the record information. you know?
I'm not ethical, so
Hey, man, you just had your baby face turn on Twitter. Don't
I
ruin your
did.
baby
I
face
did.
turn.
It was very nice. People said really great things.
Yeah, you don't want to have the world's shortest baby face turn ever.
I'm like the Big Show of wrestling media. I can accept that.
You're just gonna go back and forth.
Yeah, that's me.
Alrighty, everyone. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching all of the videos. I'm going to post all of the links below where you guys can check out Fightful and Sean Ross Sapp and all of that in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the video that Sean and I did where we predicted 2025 wrestling predictions. And Sean, it kind of gets a little crazy, huh?
It does get a little crazy. And once again, I'm going to be right about everything.
Well, we'll leave it up to the people. Go ahead and check out that video right now. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.